Alright, welcome back everybody. In this video we're going to talk about slope-intercept graphs. Specifically we're going to talk about writing an equation in slope-intercept form based off of a graph, or writing or making a graph based off of an equation that's in slope-intercept form. So we're going to start by looking at some graphs and writing the equations in slope-intercept form that produce those graphs. So basically we'll go through a two-step process to do this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So we look at the y-axis, right, there's the y-axis, and we look for the value where the graph crosses the y-axis. And it looks like this one crosses at 6. So the y-intercept is 6. Then we need to find the slope. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look for another point on the graph, maybe this point right here, where it perfectly goes through two grid lines so that we can easily count the blocks and identify the slope as such. So now the slope, remember, is rise over run. So this graph, to get from the pinkish point to the purple point, we're going to go down 1 and over 2 to the right, which means that our slope is down 1 and over 2 to the right. 2 to the right is positive. So our slope is going to be negative 1/2. Once we've identified that information from the picture, we're going to go ahead and write the equation y equals m x plus b. And there's the equation that represents that graph. Now, one thing you have to be careful of when you find the slopes, depending on which 2 points you pick, you might need to reduce that fraction. I picked 2 points there that didn't require us to reduce the fraction, but we might need to do that at some point in time, depending on which 2 points we pick to find the slope. Alright, so next, part B, I'm first going to identify the y-intercept. Where does the graph cross the y-axis? That happens at negative 7. And then I'm going to identify the slope. And to find the slope this time, I pick another point where the graph goes directly through a couple of grid lines. And now I count. I go up 1, 2, 3, as I go to the right 1. So my slope is going to have a rise of 3 over a run of 1. I can reduce that to the whole number 3. And then I'm going to write my equation, y equals 3x minus 7. Alright, let's do a couple more just to really get this in your brain. So first I'm going to identify the y-intercept, where the graph crosses the y-axis. In this case, it's at negative 4. And then I'm going to find another point in order to find the slope. Here's another point where the graph crosses directly through grid lines. And then I'm going to identify the rise over run. It goes up 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3 to the right. So we've got a rise of 2, that's positive, and a run of 3 to the right. So our slope is going to be 2/3. And we'll write our equation, y equals 2/3 x minus 4. We'll do the same thing again in part D. We'll identify the y-intercept, and then we'll identify the slope. And then we'll write the equation. And the y-intercept, where the graph crosses through the axis, is at 0. And then my slope, let's see, it looks like it goes directly through the grid line right here. And so my slope, I go down 1, 2, 3, and I go over to the right 4. So my slope is going to be negative since I'm going down as I move to the right. I go down 3 and over 4. So my equation is going to be y equals negative 3/4 x plus 0. Again, like we talked about in the last video, we don't need to write the plus 0 at the end. And so the equation for this line is y equals negative 3/4 x. Alright, now let's go in the other direction. We're going to start with the equation. We're going to identify the slope and the y-intercept, and we're going to use it to graph. The slope in this first one is 2, and the y-intercept is negative 3. In order to graph this, we start by graphing the y-intercept. So we go down to negative 3 on the y-axis. And then since the slope is 2, that's the same as 2 over 1. So we're going to rise 2 when we run 1 over to the right. So we need a point right here. And we'll do that again, go up 2 and over 1, plot another point, and then I will draw in the line that goes through these points using the ruler. And there's my graph of y equals 2x minus 3. Alright, here we go again, part B. I identify the slope, negative 3/5. The y-intercept is positive 2. So the first thing I do is plot the y-intercept. Go to 2 on the y-axis, plot the y-intercept. And then the slope is negative 3 over 5. So I'm going to go down 3 when I go over to the right 5. There's one point. And I'll do it again. I'll go down 3 and over 5, plot another point. And then I'll break out my handy-dandy ruler and draw the line through these points. And there's the graph of y equals negative 3/5 x plus 2. A couple more examples here. We've got a slope of 2/5 and a y-intercept of 1. So we go to 1 on the y-axis, plot our point. And then the slope is 2/5, so we're going to go up 2 and over 5. Plot another point, up 2 and over 5. And then we break out our handy-dandy ruler and connect our points. And there's our graph of our line. The last one here, y equals negative 4x. Slope is negative 4. And the y-intercept is 0. Since nothing's being added on the end, it's like we've got a plus 0 there. The slope of negative 4 means negative 4 over 1. So first I plot the y-intercept. I'm going to go to 0 on the y-axis and plot a point. And then since the slope is negative 4 over 1, I'm going to go down 4 units and over 1 to the right and plot a point. And down 4 units and over 1 to the right and plot a point. And then I'm going to break out my handy-dandy ruler again and draw the line through these points. And there's our graph. That's the end of this video on slope-intercept graphs. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.